Hey people, Rakdos Cackler here with another deck tech, this time for a new deck that I built this morning. It's a mono red, which I have not built a deck like this in a long time. It's a mono red burn, and when I say burn, I mean it's the most aggressive deck, the most aggressive burn deck that I've built. It has a little bit of everything, but in its core, it is still just burn, which is used to be my strong suit. Now, let's start off with the lands. Lands are incredibly simple. 20 mountains. That is it. All you need in this deck is 20 mountains, and I've made that work. For spells, starting off with the two miracle spells I have in there. Reforge the Soul, which is great for if you have a bad hand and you draw this in your second turn. Really fun to do because then it's basically a mulligan. Only it does a mulligan for both you and your opponent, so it's a little fun. Thunderous Wrath, miracle for 1, 5 damage, target creature to player, really useful. 2 explosive impact, 6 cost for 5 damage. A little expensive but useful. 2 homing lightning, 4 damage to target creature and each other creature with the same name. You do not want to use this card in an EDH deck because it's basically nothing but 4 damage. EDH, you can only have one of every creature that you have in there. So then 2 Pyromatics. Yes, it's an Azet card, but it's very useful because it has Replicate for 2 mana and it deals 1 damage, and you're going to be getting mana like crazy in this deck. So then with Punish the Enemy, I have 4 of them just because of the aspect that you're dealing damage to your opponent and to one of their creatures, which is very useful if they're using like a heavy creature. You can use sit there, use it next turn, keep on whittling them down slowly. And then there's 2 Incinerates, which are good because if it destroys a creature, it sends it to the exile instead of just the graveyard. So that's really useful. Browbeat, giving your opponent some choice. Either they take 5 damage or you draw 3 cards. It's usually how it always pans out. Very useful. Pick your poison. That's what I always say when I play that card. Then 2 Muggings. Very good card from Gatecrash. 2 damage to target creature and that creature cannot block. And it costs 1 mana. So you use that with another one and it's basically, if your opponent's got 2 creatures, you're basically going to do that combo and they're not going to be able to do anything. So then you got 2 Curse of the Pierced Heart, which is an enchantment that goes on a player and it basically deals 1 damage to target player every turn. Fun because it basically kills your opponent slowly. Okay, let's get to the creatures now. I have Lord of Shatterskull Pass. He's in there temporarily. I'm going to replace him with another Planeswalker. Malignus, mythic elemental from... He's a mythic elemental from Avacyn Restored. His power and toughness are equal to the greatest number of life an opponent has halved. So, and then you got 2 Reckless Brutes, haste, and they attack each turn if able. 2 Goblin Arsonists, which are fun because you're basically asking your opponent to attack just so you can block with this and deal 1 to them. 2 Hellfire Mongrels, just in case your opponent's using like a self-mill deck. They're not going to like it if you have when you summon that, because then every time they have 2 or less cards in hand, they're taking 2 damage every turn. 2 Arc Runners, just for a little bit of hit and run action, because they come in. It's a 3-drop. It's a 5/1 3-drop with haste, and then you sacrifice at the end of turn. It's basically a hit and run attack. Then 2 Fiery Hellhounds. 3-drop 2/2, but it has fire breathing, which is incredibly good. And yes, its ability basically is fire breathing. I know I have, because I used to use fire breathing on that and combo its ability with a fire breathing. 2 Forged Devils works exactly like Goblin Arsonist. Only difference is with this, it hurts us both. And it does it when it enters the field, not enters the graveyard. Kiln Fiends, it works along with the last creature you'll be seeing in this deck. Kiln Fiend gets +3/+0 every time you cast an instant or sorcery. So basically, if you use it right, you can end up dealing like massive damage in a single turn. Firewall, why? Because I always put a creature like this in a deck, like this, because if you're playing an aggressive deck, you always want to have one creature untapped. One creature who will sit there and take the damage for you. Then 2 Cobblebrutes, they're just for the power. No effects at all. Then 2 Guttersnipes. These work along with the Kiln Fiends perfectly, because every time you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 2 damage to an opponent. Since I have 2, I always have 2 on the field. Combo that with Kiln Fiend, and you're going to be dealing... I've dealt 10 damage in a single turn using a combo of them. And then, lastly in this deck are 2 Planeswalkers. Tibalt the Fiend-Blooded and Koth of the Hammer. Koth of the Hammer works perfectly for a burn deck, and so does Tibalt. So, Koth will sit there and untap your mountains for you, as well as add mountains to your field for every mountain you already control. So allowing you to cast every card in your hand, basically. And then Tibalt the Fiend-Blooded, basically, his ultimate is the only reason he's in the deck. I'm going to be replacing him for a Chandra, hopefully, soon. He's going to be replaced for something, I don't know what, but his ultimate is gain control of all creatures until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste. That's a good ability. I use him for that and his second ability, which is a burn ability, basically. Tibalt the Fiend-Blooded deals damage equal to the number of cards in target player's hand. Decent, unless you're playing a deck like this where you don't want to have any cards in your hand. Unless you're playing like a... What I mean to say is, unless you're playing a self-mill, which is kind of how my zombie deck goes, he's going to basically deal some damage. With this, if you face a deck like this, with this deck, you're going to deal damage with him because you're going to keep cards in your hand, and you're going to be using them constantly. So, the Planeswalkers are relevant to how the deck works. So, that is the new deck that I built this morning, and it works really well. It didn't take me that long, although I did have like over 100 cards stacked up in front of me, picking cards to put into this deck, and I chose the 64 right here, so I have to mill away like a few cards from it, but after that it'll be nice and ready for battle. I'm going to be testing this out this weekend, and I will make a video of that test run with it, because I like this deck. It works really well for what I want it to do, which is burn everything on the field away and my opponent's life. So, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe. Rakdos Cackler signing off.